Look on the bright side. Nobody got hurt. The Nice Guys is up next on Rediscovered Movies. Hello, welcome to a new episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo Malloy. So today I'll be talking about The Nice Guys, which is a 2016 action comedy thriller film. It's directed and co-written by Shane Black, who's known for films such as Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang, and Iron Man 3. The film is also co-written by Anthony Rosie, who is doing the Roadhouse remake. The film stars Russell Crowe, Ryan Gosling, and Matt Bomer. So here is the synopsis. Holland March, played by Ryan Gosling, is a down on his luck private eye in 1977 Los Angeles. Jackson Healy, played by Russell Crowe, is a hired enforcer who hurts people for a living. Fate turns them into unlikely partners after a young woman named Amelia, played by Margaret Qualley, mysteriously disappears. Healy and Marge soon learn the hard way that some dangerous people are also looking for Amelia. Their investigation takes them to dark places as anyone else who gets involved in the case seems to wind up dead. So this movie was released in theaters on May 20th, 2016. In terms of the box office, it made over 59.5 million worldwide against a $50 million budget. It opened at number 4 domestically with over 11.2 million. It was beaten by films including The Angry Birds and Captain America Civil War. In terms of critical reception, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 91% critic score where they say The Nice Guys harkens back to the buddy comedies of a bygone era while adding something extra courtesy of a knowing script and the irresistible chemistry of its leads. The audience gave it 79%. It has a B minus cinema score. It won a Golden Schmo Award for Most Underrated Film of the Year. And at the time of this recording, it is available on demand, so check your local provider. All right, first discoveries. So I remember at the time before the movie came out, I saw the trailers and the commercials for it, I think both in theaters and on TV. It looked interesting for me because I am a fan of like the buddy cop movies. I've seen my fair share, including ones by Shane Black. And I figured, yeah, I'll check this one out. And it came out during my brother's birthday, so we checked it out during opening weekend. And we both enjoyed the movie at the time. I really enjoyed it as an action comedy, and I really liked Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. They have chemistry as the leads. So let's get on to highlights. So Shane Black. So with this movie, like it shows some staples that he has in his previous movies as either as a director or as a writer solely. So staples include two protagonists working together and they become friends, which is Healy and March. The protagonists become better, where like with Healy, he stops beating people up, and March is not a screw up. And it features also two witty dialogue from Shane Black. An example is with Misty Mountain says, "How do you like my car, big boy?" And of course, it wouldn't be a Shane Black film without Christmas. We hear it's shown in the final scene at the bar with Healy and March, where they share their ad for their new agency. And at least here with Christmas, it doesn't play a big role, unlike his other films. So there you have it. So if you guys are a fan of Shane Black, you'll definitely enjoy this movie. Another highlight is obviously Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe as our leads. So I find here, like for both of them, it's nice to see them in comedic roles because I've seen more of like their serious work, particularly with Russell Crowe. While like with Ryan Gosling, like he has done some comedic work with Saturday Night Live, and yeah, like and it shows that both of them are able to handle the comedy while also displaying like the charm for both of their characters despite their flaws in the movie. So I find that they balance each other out, where like with Ryan Gosling's character has the smarts since he's a PI and used to be a detective, while like with Healy, he is more as the enforcer, like the muscle essentially. And clearly, with these characters, they do not like each other at the beginning, particularly when we first see them together when Healy beats up Marge, essentially to prevent him from following Amelia, like for a case he's working with for Mrs. Glenn. And it's interesting that like after the events of the movie, they decide to have a PI agency together, and the paper ad of their faces looks so cute. So yeah, like I really enjoyed both the characters and the actors in this movie. And I enjoy like with Healy, with Russell Crowe's character, is a softie. Because yeah, like he is enforcer, like he is physically capable of beating people up. But then he also has like a softer side to him. So particularly when he retells the diner story to Marge, like he kind of gets a bit emotional of it because he says it was the best day of his life as he was more useful. And his relationship with March's daughter Holly is cute because essentially like Holly doesn't want Healy to beat up or to kill the bad guys, but of course Healy does since it is kind of part of his job description. So I find like that was an interesting dynamic, and of course like he doesn't want to ruin his relationship with Holly because of course that's going to affect his relationship with March in the film. So but even though with the bad guys deserve to die, but at least he, you know, doesn't do that for the sake of the relationship of both Holly and March. So, but I would say though, like with Blueface dies because Holly wasn't present, but she kind of suspects that he killed her, that he killed him. Sorry. While like with John Boy, of course she was there and she's like, if you do it, never talk to you again. But then he listens to her and congratulates John Boy, is essentially that his life was saved by a Holly, or as he says, a 13-year-old. And with Marge, even though he may not look like he cares about his job, he actually does at the end of the day. So essentially, throughout the movie, he's shown to be a loser. Where, like, with the first shot of him, we see he is in the bathtub, soaking wet, look like he was doing a lot of drinking, and he does a lot of drinking throughout this movie. And he often spends his time scamming his clients, particularly Mrs. Glenn, for extra money, and he tends to be a klutz. And we have moments of this, such as when he's trying to break in to the bar. I guess when it's closed, he punches the glass, and then it ends up cutting his wrist when he extends it, which is hilarious. And even though yeah, like he messes up at times, probably not intentionally, but at least he has a good heart at the end because he does actually want to help the clients, find who they're looking for. And so like with Amelia, like he was able to find her, and then he helps Healy with the case as more stuff unfolds. With Holly, like she's very smart and mature for her age because I figure like in her position she would want to spend time like with her friends, go to school, all that sorts of stuff. But here with Holly, like she spends time with her dad probably in some cases, she doesn't want to, but she does. And it's it's funny that like she often drives March around, even though like she's not old enough to drive and does not have a license. But like with Holly, she wants to help out because we see her like, for example, she hides in the trunk of March's car, which is discovered like when he hears noise coming from his car, and then yeah, like I thought, yeah, that scene was hilarious. Like, and also too, like when she's at the party, like she tries to talk to people to find where Amelia is. So, and she's also capable of handling herself, despite her age and height. Because particularly when John Boy, when he arrives at home under false pretenses to help Amelia, Holly, she like immediately suspects this guy is shady and pulls a gun at him, and then stuff unfolds after that. And there's also a moment when she throws coffee at Tally to stop her, thinking that it was hot coffee, but it was actually cold. So even though, yeah, like stuff doesn't work out at times, but at least she has like the good mindset. Also, too, I love how like this movie has moments of comedy. Well, yes, it is an action comedy, but it has like some short moments here and there. Like for example, March he gives a bartender a bill that is folded like a t-shirt, or also too like when Healy is outside March's house and Holly asks like, oh, why he's outside, and then March is like, oh, we don't allow animals in the house. Or another moment is like when Healy's ex-wife, like during a flashback, admits that she is sleeping with his father. And I'll do one more where like the protest group, they went when Healy and March find them outside the police department. The protest group, they're just lying down in silence to protest the air, which is quite hilarious as well. So this movie has a lot of those types of moments. Also, too, there's some appearances from actors that have appeared in Shane Black's previous movies or his works, such as with Ty Simpkins. He was known for being the kid from Iron Man 3. He played Bobby during the opening sequence, where it's kind of a funny moment with his character where he sneaks into his parents' room to grab a magazine, the porn magazine, and looks at the Misty Mountains poster in a particular figure. And then yeah, like right when the crash happens at his place, he sees Misty in a similar pose, and then she dies. And then at least like he does the right thing by covering her up because of Misty, she's just wearing a blouse that's open with her breast exposed, essentially. And also too, Robert Downey Jr., who appeared in Iron Man 3 and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He cameos as Sid in the movie, but he's essentially a dead corpse because they were trying to look for him during the party. And lastly, Yvonne Zima, who's known for playing Caitlin in The Long Kiss Goodnight. She appears as young porn queen during the scene when she's talking with Holly at the party. So those are some cool cameos in this movie. Also, too, I found the action scenes are both fun and intense. So an example is when John Boy, when he is leaving the house, and when Healy and March arrives, like they start a shootout. And there was like a funny moment when what's his name, Healy asked March for a gun. Instead of throwing it towards Healy, he throws it at the window, which is hilarious. And then also to another moment is the fight scene between Marge and the older guy when it starts at the roof, where older guy and Marge, they end up falling down, where the older guy, he dies immediately upon impact on the ground, while with Marge, he falls into the pool. So that was cute. So I enjoyed those scenes, like they were entertaining. Also, too, this with the film that the characters are looking for, it acts as the MacGuffin essentially. So because throughout this movie, like it's been revealed that there is a film that exposes, I guess, the corruption, but it's disguised as a porn film, I guess, for commercial value, which is interesting. And there's a scene in the movie where they're chasing after the film roll towards the end. So I thought that was fun to watch. And luckily, with March, he was able to grab it at the end. But I will say it was kind of weird that there was these random people in that scene. They're like, "Oh, get that film," but we're like, "Who are these people?" You know. But other than that, like I enjoyed that scene. And also, too, this movie represents the 70s well, because yes, it is set in 1977. Because we see in this movie, like at the beginning, the old Warner Brothers logo, and of course, the music selections, like Papa is a Rolling Stone, or with the Al Green song, like at the end credits. And also, too, like with the auto show, is treated as a huge event, like with the car show. I'm sure there's car shows today, but it seems like here, like it's treated as an event that everybody wants to go to. And lastly, this movie has a lot of like helicopter or wide shots of different locations in the city. I would say like my favorite ones is like is the night sequences because we see all like the different colored lights and we see like not a darker side, but it looks pretty cool like with those shots. So on to lowlights. I want to talk about Judith, played by Kim Basinger. So she is an a official for the Justice Department where she's prosecuting these car makers on some case. But then after meeting Amelia, like she deduces that oh, her mom and I guess what the system is corrupt and all that stuff, which turns out to be true. And then with Judith, she decides to hire John Boy and co to go after the people that's involved with the film, which includes Amelia. But then she hires March and Healy to protect Amelia, which I'm like, why? I don't understand that choice because I don't really get her motivations. Because I guess after like the case is solved, Judith was like, "Oh, like I did it for Detroit, I did it for America," which I'm like, really? Because you had a choice, like either protect the daughter or don't. But it seemed like she did what she did for the sake of it. And yeah, like I felt like that part of the movie could have been worked out a bit more, but it is what it is. And also, too, lastly, with the narration, for me, I felt was hit and miss. I felt it was weird when March, when he has the film, he's at the car at the end. There's like a narration from him. I forgot the line, which I'm like, yeah, that's a weird place to have narration. But I felt it was fine during like the introductions for both Healy and March because it seemed more appropriate there. But for that moment at the end, I'm like, no, that could have been removed. Okay, let's go on to the trivia section. So here's some fun facts. So the project was initially proposed as a TV series, but was retooled as a film after the plot seemed to be going nowhere, which I find is interesting because yeah, like with the concept, like it could be suited as a TV series, either in episodic format where each episode Healy and Marge they solve a case, or it could go the serialized route where each season focuses on a big case that they're trying to solve. So I thought, yeah, that's interesting choice. Like obviously, like the film worked, like regardless, but it could have worked either or, in my opinion, depending on the direction, I suppose. The script is loosely based on a 1973 pulp novel called Blue Murder in the Michael Shane series by prolific writer Robert Terrell, who used the pen name Brett Halliday for those books. Interesting. The dialogue between the bartender and the detectives, where he says, he'll stop doing it. Doing what? Is the same line from Iron Man 3 when Rhodey and Tony interrogate Mandarin. Both films, of course, are directed and co-written by Shane Black. So I thought that was interesting because I honestly have not seen Iron Man 3 since it came out. So I'm like, okay, interesting. Despite being the film's main antagonist, Matt Bomer doesn't appear until an hour, 22 minutes, and 17 seconds into the movie. Interesting. I don't know, like, if he's the main antagonist because, again, he is a henchman. I guess you could say the lead henchman, but okay. So the film includes several references to Shane Black's movies. A character who appears in an adult movie dies in the beginning, like Lethal Weapon. A character called a effed up by his daughter, like The Last Boy Scout. A duck drawing appears like The Long Kiss Goodnight. And Robert Downey Jr. appears in an uncredited cameo. And he appeared in Iron Man 3 and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So I thought, yeah, that's interesting. Interesting. Because I think I've seen all of those movies, but except for Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And yeah, I would love to like rewatch. I'll rewatch this movie and then also rewatch those movies. And I would love to see those connections. And lastly, when promoting his program, The Loudest Voice on the Howard Stern Show, Russell Crowe said that this was one of two films where he wishes there was a sequel, as he liked playing the character. The other film was LA Confidential. Yeah, I would love to see a sequel for this movie, but unfortunately, because this movie did not do well at the box office, the sequel is unlikely. But I do see like either let's say for streaming because since this is Warner Brothers, that they could either do like a TV series like on I guess it's now called Max or HBO, or they could do like a streaming movie for the platform, but I don't know. I don't think they want to focus on streaming movies right now. So I think a TV series is most likely to happen if they were to continue with this movie. But it seems as though like more people are watching it after the film's release, so we'll see what happens. But fingers crossed. All right, lastly, I usually ask this question. Should this movie be rediscovered? And I say absolutely yes, because it's an entertaining movie. If you've seen like buddy cop movies, you'll enjoy this one. Plus, I feel like, yeah, buddy cop movies of recent have not worked out a lot, but I really enjoyed this one mainly because of the chemistry between the leads and everybody does a good job. And plus, two, if you like Shane Black movies, you'll enjoy this one. So that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Linktree at Nomfanelo. You can find the podcast on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Linktree at RD Movies Pod. On Spotify, you could answer the feature question and poll and rate the podcast. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review and rate the podcast. And you could submit questions, comments, suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com. Or you can leave a voice message on Spotify for Podcasters, which was formerly Anchor.fm at RD Movies Pod to be featured on the after show, which will air after the season finale. And I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the podcast and see you on the next one.